"You'll never be more than a footnote in my life," she said, swirling a $400 glass of wine like she was auditioning to play Cruella de Vil in a courtroom drama. She had that new smile, the one people get when money rewires their face, like Botox and greed fused into one smug expression. She didn't even look like the woman I married 22 years ago. No, that woman knew how to fake affection better. This one didn't bother. She had $200 million burning a hole in her soul now, courtesy of her late father's will and a surprise clause nobody, not even she, saw coming. But we'll get there. Right now, let me take you back to the moment she dropped the act. It was a Thursday, rainy, cold enough to keep the smell of her lies crisp in the air. We were sitting in our kitchen, her kitchen, as she called it that morning for the first time. I was folding the mail like it still mattered. She was already dressed for what she called her rebranding lunch downtown. New clothes, new accent, somewhere between Upper East Side and Bravo reality TV, and a new perfume that made her smell like revenge in a bottle. She dropped her phone on the counter like she wanted me to read it. That was her game lately, leaving digital breadcrumbs. Instagram DMs that dinged from Marcus K., a man I assumed was her tennis coach until I heard him moan her name through the bathroom vent 2 weeks ago while she was on speakerphone. "You look tired," she said, not looking at me. Like obsolete. That was the beginning. I didn't flinch. I kept folding the water bill like I didn't just hear her tell me I was a used-up tool. "Obsolete, huh?" She took another sip. "Don't be dramatic, Ed. You were fine when we were hustling, when we had to care about coupons and gas prices. But this..." She gestured at herself like she'd evolved. "I'm past that now." She didn't even realize how sloppy she was being. That was the fun part. Money doesn't make people smart. It just makes their entitlement louder. She finally looked at me. "I spoke to a lawyer," she said. "He said since the inheritance is in my name only, you're not entitled to anything. Not a dime. And considering you haven't worked in, what? 2 years? That makes you pretty much dead weight." My hand paused on the envelope. "You done?" I asked. "Oh, honey." She laughed. "I've been done." She got up, heels echoing across the tile like war drums. "Enjoy the house for now. I'll be in Cabo by the weekend. Marcus is picking me up after brunch. Try not to cry into your cereal." I didn't answer. I watched her walk out. That wasn't the time for talking. That night, I dug out something from the attic. A small, dusty brown box she told me to throw out years ago. It had a sticky note on it in my handwriting. "Dad's records, don't toss." Inside were 5 spiral notebooks, some receipts, and one thing that made my pulse flatline for a second. A receipt from 1998, signed by her father, my father-in-law, a man who looked at me on our wedding day and whispered, "Don't let her spin you." The receipt was for a property deed, a joint deed, his and mine, the first of many breadcrumbs he'd left for me. She thought she inherited everything, and she did, on paper. But what she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that my father-in-law and I had a quiet understanding. He didn't trust her, not with money, not with legacy, and especially not with the company he built from nothing while she was off taking selfies on yachts and calling it networking. Over the next few days, I visited a man named Ray Whitaker, estate attorney, quiet office, no receptionist, just a small fish tank with one angry-looking goldfish and a stack of yellowed law books on his desk. The kind of lawyer you call when you need things done, not filed. I handed him the documents. He smiled like he'd just found the last piece of a puzzle. "She thinks she owns the entire estate?" he asked. "She does." He nodded. "Let her keep thinking that." So I did. I let her book her first-class seat to Cabo. I let her post Instagram stories from some overpriced villa, sipping drinks with Marcus's hand on her thigh. I let her laugh when she sent me divorce papers with a handwritten note that said, "No hard feelings. You'll land on your feet. Eventually." But the wheels were already turning. Because here's the thing she didn't know yet. One of those spiral notebooks contained a handwritten addendum to her father's will. Never filed, never notarized, but witnessed. By me and one other man. A name she used to know. A name she was going to hear again. In the most unexpected place, from the most inconvenient person. And it would all begin to unravel the moment that lawyer, her lawyer, asked one question she wasn't ready to answer. You'll see. Because next time you hear from me, I'll tell you exactly what made her stop laughing mid-sentence, with Marcus's arms still draped around her at the lawyer's office, when he asked her, calm as can be, "Ma'am, who is Edward R. Marlowe listed as co-executor of the trust?" She blinked like someone had just hit pause on her brain. "Co-executor," she said, lips twitching at the corners, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Her lawyer, a guy named Brad who looked like he practiced courtroom intimidation in the mirror, started flipping through his papers like he'd just lost a winning lottery ticket. "Yes," the estate attorney repeated, as calm as a surgeon. "It's in the appendix. A handwritten addendum, witnessed and dated, by your father and Mr. Marlowe." She turned to me then, really turned, and for the first time in months, I saw her face move. No Botox smile, no yacht and smugness, just confusion, and something like fear trying to climb its way up her throat. I didn't say a word, just sat there, hands folded, wearing the same off-brand suit she once told me looked like a car salesman from 1992. Her words, not mine. Brad leaned in toward her and whispered something through his clenched jaw. She shook her head once, then again, more violently. "That's not possible," she snapped. "My father he never would have done that without telling me." Ray, the estate attorney, barely lifted an eyebrow. "Well, he did." And then, almost as if he'd been waiting for that moment all day, he pulled out the spiral-bound notebook and slid it across the mahogany table toward her. "That's his handwriting," she muttered. "Where did you get this?" "You left it," I said quietly. "In the attic, inside a box marked trash." Like it was nothing. She didn't respond. Her mind was sprinting 100 miles a minute, trying to figure out if this was real, if she could reverse it, if maybe Marcus could talk to his lawyer friend and fix this whole thing with a few calls and a martini lunch. But she already knew. Her father's handwriting was ironclad in court. He used to handwrite grocery lists like he was signing off on treaties. And she knew, deep down, what kind of man he really was. Which made her next words all the more pitiful. He must have been confused. He was old. Sick. She pointed at me, voice shaking. "You probably manipulated him." That was her go-to when she didn't have control. Accusations. Wild ones. Ones that didn't need to make sense, just noise. But Brad wasn't playing along anymore. He cleared his throat like a man who realized his client was slowly turning into a PR nightmare. "We'll have to examine the validity of the document," he said. "Oh, please," Ray said, chuckling as he leaned back. "2 signatures. Dated. Witnessed. It's valid. But you go ahead and challenge it in probate if you want, Brad. I'll even bring snacks to the hearing." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was perfect. Like watching the first brick in her empire fall, and knowing I was the one who pulled it loose. This is when Marcus got involved. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He was waiting in the lobby, bored out of his skull, probably scrolling through Instagram thirst traps while imagining what part of my house he'd turn into his home gym. He walked in when she texted him, "Come in now. Urgent." And the second he saw her pale face and the open notebook on the table, he frowned. "What's going on?" he asked, chest puffed, voice thick with that phony alpha confidence that disappears the second someone with a briefcase and authority walks in. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her purse. "We're leaving." But Ray, calm, soft-spoken, and lethal, added, "You might want to stay for the next part." "What next part?" She spat. Ray opened another file. The clause. In the original will. The one before the inheritance was split. He pointed at a paragraph. "It says that any major transaction over $50,000 made within 6 months of the testator's death must be jointly authorized by both executors. That includes property sales, business liquidations, trust dispersals." He let that hang. "Wait," Marcus said slowly, glancing at her. "You said everything was in your name. You said we were free and clear." She didn't answer. He turned to me. "Are you telling me she couldn't touch the money without your signature?" I looked at him for the first time. Really looked. "You're standing in a $7 million hole," I said. "Bought a penthouse. A new car. Flew to Mykonos for 3 weeks. On an account she didn't legally control." His face drained like someone pulled the plug behind his eyes. "You're f***ing joking." "Nope. That's when she tried the waterworks. That thing she used to do in college when a professor called her out for cheating on a paper." Tears, the cracked voice, the tremble in the hands. "Except now?" It looked rehearsed. Plastic. "Too late." "I didn't know," she said. He never told me. Why wouldn't he tell me this? I smiled. Couldn't help it. Because he didn't trust you, I said. And he did trust me. I stood then. Slowly. Deliberately. My shadow stretching across the table like a gavel. And just so we're clear, I added, this isn't even the bad news yet. Next part, I'll tell you about the shell company. The one she transferred $3.1 million into before her second mimosa in Tulum. The one with my name on the articles of incorporation. The one I created 10 years ago for a very specific reason. And the one she's about to find out never actually belonged to her at all. She always fancied herself a strategist. Chessboard queen. Master of manipulation. But she played checkers with dollar bills and assumed everyone else would fold under her acrylic-nailed pressure. So when I walked into the downtown bank that Monday morning, just after sunrise, wearing my I'm just a guy windbreaker and a calm, neutral face, nobody looked twice. Not the guard, not the teller, and definitely not the branch manager who greeted me by name. Mr. Marlowe, he said, shaking my hand. We've been expecting you. I handed him the folder. Inside, the articles of incorporation, notarized resolutions, and a power of attorney that bore two curious signatures. One, obviously mine. The other? Her father's. See, long before her Instagram wisdom and spiritual awakenings, her father and I built a little machine. A financial silo. A quiet company that didn't do anything flashy, no public website, no LinkedIn. Just a name, Clearfield Holdings LLC. To her, it sounded like another shell, one of the many she bounced money through in her post-inheritance frenzy. She probably thought she was being clever, discreet, transferring millions in chunks of $500,000 to $750,000 across accounts, like she was laundering poker winnings. But the thing is, she never read the fine print. Clearfield wasn't her playground. It was a legal trapdoor, a funnel. Her father set it up years ago as an asset test, a financial litmus test to see what she'd do when given control. She failed spectacularly, because every transfer she made, every cent she poured into that company, landed in a structure where I held controlling interest. Worse, she violated the operational clause in the original trust by moving those funds without written authorization from the other executor. Me. In short, she funded my retirement. In stilettos. With a smile. I'll never forget the look on her face later that day when she burst into the bank, flanked by Marcus, looking like a bodyguard who got lost on the way to a vape shop, and her lawyer, Brad, who was already sweating through his Armani cuffs. She was seething. No tears this time. Just pure, simmering, high-octane rage. What the hell is this? She demanded, slamming a stack of transaction records onto the manager's desk. This company is mine. I transferred funds into it. I've been using it for months. Brad muttered something about legal review, and Marcus just looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The manager turned to me, expression flat. Mr. Marlowe, do you wish to proceed with the withdrawal? I nodded. She lunged. Withdraw what? I didn't look at her. I just pulled out the final authorization document. Account ending in 1447, I said. Wire transfer. Full amount. Liquidation to personal trust, effective immediately. The manager didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. Her voice cracked then. Cracked. That's embezzlement. That's fraud. You stole from me. No, I said, finally meeting her eyes. You stole from yourself. I just built the bucket you poured it into. Marcus stepped back like she had a live grenade in her handbag. And that's when she played her final, desperate card. The one she always saved for last. Victim mode. Ed, she said, voice softening. I was confused. All of this happened so fast. My dad died. I was grieving. And I made mistakes. But we can fix this. You don't have to do this. Please. I almost bought it. Almost. But then I remembered something. Something so small, I nearly let it go. A hotel keycard. A silver one. Weeks ago, it slid out of her gym bag. She said it was from her friend's engagement party, one she went to alone because I wouldn't enjoy all the girls' energy. I flipped it back then. Noticed the logo. A boutique hotel in Scottsdale. The same one she stayed at with me years ago. The same room number etched in the corner. And suddenly I knew it wasn't just Marcus. There was someone else. Another player. Someone she trusted more than her bimbo boy toy. Someone she really planned this with. I was no longer looking at a greedy narcissist with an attitude problem. I was looking at a full-scale con artist who got sloppy because she underestimated the man she used to kiss goodnight while texting her exit plan to God knows who. So I leaned in, inches from her. "You don't get to beg now," I whispered. "Not after you sold off your loyalty for a rooftop pool and a fake life with a side of protein shakes." Then I walked out, calm, silent, but already working on the next step, because there was still one account she didn't know I knew about. One offshore vault, set up by her mystery partner. It was in his name. But guess whose signature authorized the transfers? Hers. And guess who just hired a forensic accountant with a penchant for finding Swiss shadows? Me. Let her scream. Let her cry. Let her scramble. Because by the time I'm done, she'll wish she left with nothing. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, or sad, or confused. That ship had sailed months ago, maybe even years. What kept me awake was focus. The kind of still, surgical concentration you get when you know tomorrow is the day 1,000 dominoes fall, and you're the one holding the air. Her offshore account was registered in the British Virgin Islands. Classic. Cliché, even. The kind of setup you'd find in a bad crime drama or a disgraced CEO's biography. But here's what made it interesting. It wasn't hers. It was registered to a man named Leonard Bass. Leonard Bass didn't exist. At least not in the way she thought. I found the name once. Just once, tucked in a WhatsApp message preview that flashed on her iPad by mistake. She was in the bath. I was walking past. It lit up, and for half a second, I saw it. L. Bass. Make sure the wire clears before you talk to the lawyer. Sent Thursday. I memorized it. Didn't touch the device. Didn't ask questions. Just opened a note on my own phone and typed the name like I was jotting down a grocery item. L. Bass. That was 3 months ago. I hired someone I knew from my early days in logistics. Randy. Ex-Fed. Quiet. No social media. Still uses a flip phone like it's 2005 and swears by it. I wired him 10 grand with no questions asked and one instruction: find Leonard Bass. And he did. Leonard Bass was a shell. A composite identity built from 3 dead men and 1 stolen passport. The account he operated was funded by my wife's trust, then routed through Clearfield Holdings, then pushed out into BVI Trust Company, where it would sit quietly until her mysterious clean break plan finalized. Marcus wasn't the partner. He was bait. A decoy with muscles and mediocre taste in wine. The real player was someone older, calmer, smart enough to keep his face out of the Instagram posts and his name off the hotel receipts. Until Randy sent me a photo. It came through on Sunday morning. No message. Just an image. Grainy. Taken through glass. It was a man. Early 60s. Salt and pepper beard. Familiar. Because I knew him. His name was Jeffrey Calder. Her late father's former business partner. The man who vanished mysteriously from their company board a decade ago after a philosophical split over financial ethics. He was the reason her father stopped trusting his own family. The reason I was brought into the fold. And now he was back. Sitting across from her at an outdoor cafe in Miami like 2 retired villains sharing a farewell toast. I stared at the image for a long time. She didn't just cheat. She didn't just lie. She betrayed the very foundation her father built, and did it with the same man who once tried to bury the company in a bribery scandal and pin it on someone else. The kicker? Calder was already under investigation. Quietly. Federal. International finance violations. One more thread, and the whole thing unravels. So I called Ray. "Get the ledger ready," I said. He didn't ask which one. 2 hours later, I walked into our old guest room, now a graveyard of her designer boxes and unopened vision boards, and pulled out a black fireproof safe behind the wall vent. Combination still the same, our anniversary. Ironic. Inside, a thin ledger, embossed in gold. Her father's handwriting inside, neat and sharp. It was a record. Every silent deal, every backup clause, every financial tripwire he embedded in the empire. And on page 13, lucky number, was a signature. Jeffrey Calder. Dated 9 years ago. The note below it? Use only if she involves him again. He knew. He knew she'd circle back to the devil she once called Uncle Jeff. And that clause? It wasn't just dramatic. It was legally binding. Because the trust had a poison pill, If any dispersed funds were moved into a known entity tied to Calder, the estate would be frozen. All transfers reversed. All assets clawed back into probate. It was designed to protect the fortune from her. So I scanned the ledger, timestamped it, notarized it with Ray, and submitted it to the Federal Oversight Committee handling Calder's investigation. Then I waited. It took 3 days. 3 days for the subpoenas to hit. 3 days for her phone to start blowing up. 3 days for Marcus to bolt. I assume he packed 2 gym bags and vanished into a Planet Fitness somewhere in Ohio. And then came the knock. Her knock. Not the kind she used to make playful, tapping tipsy. No. This was desperate. Fist to wood. Repeated. Erratic. I opened the door slowly. She stood there in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, no makeup, holding a stack of legal envelopes in one shaking hand and an iPhone in the other. They froze my accounts, she whispered. I just tilted my head. That's crazy. Ed, her voice broke. I need help. I leaned against the doorframe. Calm. Silent. Until I finally said, You told me I was useless. Remember? She looked like she might collapse. And for a moment, just one, I saw the terrified little girl underneath the glitter. But this wasn't mercy season. Because what she didn't know was that I still hadn't used the trump card. The one involving her mother's signature. And the clause she forged on a document 3 years ago. She forged her mother's signature on a healthcare directive. That's where this really gets ugly. 3 years ago, her mother, Miriam, suffered a mild stroke. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make everyone pause. Enough for doctors to recommend a contingency plan. Her father, still alive at the time, insisted everything be done properly. Durable power of attorney, medical proxy, asset freeze clauses, standard, airtight estate protections. But my wife, Chelsea, had other plans. While her father was occupied with boardroom fires and her mother was still in rehabilitation, Chelsea presented a new set of documents for Miriam to sign. Legalese, 15 pages long. But there was one key addition. A clause allowing Chelsea unilateral control over emergency financial decisions in the event Miriam becomes incapacitated or unable to act in her own best interest. Here's the thing, Miriam never signed it. Because 2 months later, during a wine-fueled dinner on our back patio, Miriam confessed to me. Said she didn't trust her own daughter with a debit card, much less her retirement. She chuckled when she said it, but the tone never left her throat. She thinks I don't know about the Cayman account, she muttered. I'm old, not blind. So imagine my surprise when, a year later, Chelsea claimed she had the full legal right to liquidate Miriam's side investments to cover emergency costs. Claimed the directive had been signed, witnessed, filed, except it hadn't. At least not by Miriam. I found the proof last week while sorting old tax folders in the garage. One envelope had a post-it, shred after final copy. But it wasn't shredded. Inside, the original healthcare directive. Blank signature line. Miriam's name printed, but no ink. And next to it, a second copy. Signed. Same date. Same handwriting. Only difference? The ink wasn't Miriam's. Not even close. I held both up to the light. You didn't need a handwriting expert to see the difference. The forged one trembled on the descenders. Her M looked like a drunk seagull. The real one? Clean. Flowing. Lived in. I'd seen enough forged signatures in my past life to know. Chelsea faked it. That's fraud. On a legal document tied to a trust. So I did what anyone in my position would do. I mailed both copies, separately, to Miriam. Certified. Signature required. Along with a short note. Thought you'd like to see what your daughter did in 2021. If you'd like to talk, I'm around. 3 days later, she called me. Not to ask questions. Just to confirm. I knew she was hiding something, she said, voice calm but nuclear. She told me you were paranoid. That you were going through a breakdown after your job ended. That I shouldn't listen to your conspiracy moods. I didn't answer that. Because Chelsea always played that card. Undermining. Undercutting. Planting seeds so when the house burned down, she could say I brought the matches. But Miriam wasn't stupid. And Miriam was pissed. She made one phone call. To her lawyer. And just like that, Chelsea's entire medical proxy authority was suspended. Effective immediately. Pending investigation. That meant no access to her mother's funds. No ability to move stock. No legal standing on real estate. And just like that, another domino fell. It took less than 24 hours for Chelsea to show up at my place again. This time, she didn't knock. Just stood there on the sidewalk in the rain, holding a shattered umbrella and a blank stare. I opened the door slowly. "What?" I asked. "You turned my own mother against me." "No," I said, stepping aside so she could see the box on my kitchen table. "You did that when you forged her name and nearly bankrupted her retirement fund for a trip to St. Bart's." She didn't move, just stared at the box. Inside it, every financial record I'd found, every fake signature, every account transfer, every lie, and sitting on top of it, a framed photo. Our wedding day. Her father, standing between us, smiling like he knew this moment was coming. "You kept that?" she whispered. "Of course. It's evidence now." Her face changed. Not sadness, not rage, just pure, hollow recognition. That was the moment she realized the gravity of it. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a bad breakup. This was exposure. And there was no version of this ending where she walked away untouched. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said. I gave her a small, cold smile. "That's funny," I replied. "I know exactly who you are." She left without saying another word. But I wasn't done. Because remember Calder? The ex-partner? The puppet master behind the offshore routing? Well, turns out he made a very dumb move back in 2016. He signed a private memorandum with Chelsea's father regarding asset separation, one that included a very specific non-compete clause tied to intellectual property. And Chelsea? She violated it. On camera. It was buried in a memory card. That tiny, sand-grain-sized SD chip she left inside a Canon DSLR, one she used to record a series of smug entrepreneur mindset vlogs back when her inheritance was fresh and she was rebranding herself as a female Tony Robbins with lip filler and less originality. She thought those videos were deleted. Most of them were scrubbed clean from YouTube after her business coach told her authenticity means lawsuits. But what she didn't know, what she never even checked, was that the camera auto-backed everything up onto its internal card. Unedited, unfiltered, raw. I found it when I cleaned out the garage. Same day I found a box labeled Vision Board 2020 plus Jeff's notes. That label made me pause. Jeff? As in Calder? Inside were notebooks, mostly empty. Scribbles. Half-baked business ideas with titles like Feminine Alpha Framework and Digital Sovereignty for Women Who Don't Wait. But beneath it, stuffed between two folded scarves, was the DSLR. Battery dead. Card untouched. I charged it, powered it up, and there it was, a video dated April 17th, 2021. I hit play, and there she was, mid-rant, sipping rose on the balcony of her friend's Miami condo. No makeup. Slurring just slightly. Talking straight into the lens. "So Jeff and I figured," she said, like, "why not? Daddy's little clause only kicks in if the IP gets sold, not used." And Jeff said, and I quote, "If we flip the language just a little, nobody's gonna check." She laughed. Laughed like someone who had never been told no without conditions. "Besides," she said, "Ed's too busy playing house husband to even notice. He thinks I'm doing Pilates on Saturdays, please." I paused the video, rewound, played it again. Daddy's little clause. I knew what that meant. And so would any half-awake court clerk once they saw the rest of the documents I had. See, the company her father built wasn't just about real estate and equities. It was about proprietary strategy models, formulas for predictive investments. The kind hedge funds would kill to license. And when Calder got kicked out, part of the settlement was that he could never again engage with those models, not even derivatives. The non-compete was brutal, 30 years, full audit exposure, irrevocable. Her father had made sure of it. Chelsea? She knew. Hell, she mocked it. But on that video, drunk, cocky, unscripted, she admitted to violating it. To flipping language. To using the models anyway with Calder's help. That made it a conspiracy. And better? It was irrefutable. Ray nearly dropped his coffee when I showed it to him. "You realize what you have here," he said, blinking at the paused frame. "This isn't just leverage. This is nuclear." I nodded. "I want it sent to the feds," I said. "Anonymous tip. Timestamp it. No metadata manipulation. Straight from the device." He nodded slowly. "Ed," he said carefully, "you sure you want to go this far?" I didn't answer immediately. I just looked out his office window. Then I said, she told me I was useless. Disposable. Just a phase between better men. I gave her 22 years, my last name, and my silence. She gave me betrayal, public humiliation, and debt. I turned back to him. Yes, I want to go that far. It hit the agency desk a week later. 2 days after that, Calder's name appeared in a federal filing. Then came the audit notices. Chelsea was served next. Certified letter. No warning. No chance to pivot. I watched from my parked car as she opened the envelope on her front step, robe fluttering in the wind, coffee spilling down her hand. Her scream wasn't even angry. It was panicked. Primal. She didn't understand yet. Not fully. But she would. Soon. Because the audit would unravel everything. The Cayman account. The BVI routing. Her forged proxy over Miriam. The fake wellness retreat company she and Calder used to invoice consulting sessions that never happened. All of it. But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because I knew what came next. Desperation. And desperate people don't cry. They retaliate. Sure enough, 3 nights later, someone tried to break into my garage. Not rob it, search it. They didn't take a thing. But they ransacked the shelves. Pulled every binder out. Tore open every drawer. Looking for what? The other ledger? The unfiled will? The camera? Didn't matter. They didn't find the one thing they needed. Because the real secret wasn't in the garage. It was locked in a safety deposit box. One I opened under an alias 2 years ago. With biometric access. Out of state. And what's inside that box? Let's just say it's not mine. The deposit box is registered under the name Matthew R. Doyle, a pseudonym I created during a trip to Colorado 2 years ago, back when I still had hope and a habit of thinking 10 steps ahead. The banker at the time didn't ask questions. I paid in cash, signed the papers with a pen I brought myself, and placed exactly 3 items inside. A notarized envelope, a vintage cassette tape in a clear plastic case, a brass key. Each item came directly from her father. Given to me on the day he asked me to take a walk with him while Chelsea was inside negotiating her allowance increase over a lobster dinner. It was snowing. He walked slow. You know she's going to implode the day I die, he said. You'll be the only one left who gives a damn about cleaning up. I didn't argue. He wasn't asking for my opinion. He pulled the envelope from his coat pocket and handed it to me like it was radioactive. Keep this away from her. When the vultures start circling, you'll know when to open it. I never told Chelsea about that walk, or the envelope, or what he said next. She thinks I don't see what she's doing with Calder behind my back. But I do. And if she ever really tries to bury my name for a paycheck, he tapped the envelope. This will burn it all down. Now it was time to find out what he meant. I took a red-eye to Denver, rented a car under the Doyle alias, and drove an hour to a small branch tucked into the side of a strip mall. Nothing flashy. Just safe. Quiet. The manager scanned my fingerprint and unlocked the steel drawer. I sat alone in the cold, sterile booth and opened the envelope. Inside, a letter, typed, signed by her father, dated 5 months before his death. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to the Board of Trustees of Eddington and Sons Asset Group, a company Chelsea thought she'd inherited in full. The letter detailed a secret board vote, one she was never told about. One that stripped her of voting rights in the event she ever engaged in a financial partnership with a disbarred entity, i.e., Calder, or committed legal fraud against another beneficiary, i.e., her own mother. Attached was a signed directive giving the company's controlling shares to me. Not permanently, just in trust. But effectively, I now had control over the company she built her reputation around. The company whose name was printed on every self-aggrandizing business card she ever threw across a brunch table. I folded the letter. Calmly. Methodically. Then I turned to the cassette tape. It was labeled in black Sharpie. April 2007. For Chelsea, if she falls. I borrowed a player from the front desk. God bless old banks that still keep analog relics in the back room. And hit play. The tape hissed to life. Then his voice came through. Measured. Clear. Devastating. Chelsea, if you're hearing this, you've made a mistake. And I'm gone. A pause. I hope you didn't. But if you did, I'm not surprised. Silence. I loved you more than you'll ever understand. But loving you doesn't mean trusting you with everything. That's why Ed is hearing this with you. Or maybe instead of you. Another pause. He sighed. It was the sigh of a man who saw everything long before it happened. I gave you every advantage, every warning, every chance. If you threw that away for power, then what comes next is yours to carry. Click. End of tape. I sat there, blinking. Even dead, he was 10 steps ahead. I took the documents and had the copies certified, notarized, and sent, sealed, to the board's legal department. Chelsea was removed from all decision-making by noon the next day. The company's PR department released a statement within hours. Temporary realignment of executive roles pending legal review. The press didn't ask questions, but investors did. Her Instagram went dark that night. So did her so-called coaching collective. She tried to call me 6 times. I didn't answer. Then she showed up. This time, she didn't come alone. She brought her brother, her golden boy sibling who always managed to stay just outside the blast radius, until now. He stood in my driveway like a failed linebacker, arms crossed, teeth grinding. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I replied. "You need to listen." I played the tape, watched his face collapse, and when it ended, he just sat on the hood of his BMW and stared at the ground. "She dragged me into this," he muttered. "Said it was about legacy, about making things right. I didn't know. Christ, I didn't know about any of this." "Then get out of the way," I said. "Because I'm not done. Because, see, there was still one more thing in that box. The brass key. It didn't open anything in Denver, or in the house, or in any office. It opened a small locker, one her father kept at the Amtrak station in St. Louis. And in that locker was a list of names, people Chelsea paid, and people she ruined. The Amtrak locker was where her father kept the rot. I didn't know what to expect when I slid that brass key into the lock. Maybe a stack of old documents, a box of trinkets, something dusty and symbolic. But what I found was a single thick folder, wrapped in a rubber band, marked in his handwriting. Restitution. The smell hit me first, paper that had aged with secrets. Inside, there were names. Dozens, typed on yellowed letterhead, each one accompanied by a paragraph. Some had numbers. Others had brief summaries. But all of them told the same story. People Chelsea had stepped on. Employees, contractors, early investors, friends of the family, even 2 former caretakers from her mother's rehab facility. And next to each name, a dollar amount. Some were 5 figures, others 6. She didn't just betray family. She stole from people who could never afford to fight back. People who'd once trusted the charming daughter of the boss, with their pensions, commissions, inheritances, and, once, a church fund. It wasn't all theft. Some were delayed payments. Others, unapproved expenses. But the pattern was undeniable. If you were close to Chelsea, you got hurt. If you were useful, she used you. And when you were no longer needed, she buried you. One entry stood out. Maria N. Personal assistant, 2012 to 2015. Terminated after filing harassment complaint. NDA forced. $82,500 unpaid commission. I remembered Maria. Sweet, loyal, always had a spiral notebook in her hand and a Bluetooth headset in one ear. She worked 70-hour weeks and still brought Chelsea coffee every morning. Then one day gone. Chelsea said she snapped, accused her of theft, and had her escorted out. It never sat right. Now I knew why. I called the number on the file. Disconnected. I traced her down through LinkedIn. No updates since 2016. Finally found a bakery in Arizona with a Yelp review under her name. I called. She answered. And when I told her who I was, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just exhaled. "I thought I'd die before hearing from someone in your family again." I explained everything. The locker, the folder, the payout her father had listed, along with a handwritten note. Maria got railroaded. Chelsea lied. Make it right. Maria didn't ask for the money, but I wired it anyway. Full amount, plus interest. Then I called the next name, and the next. Over the next 2 weeks, I contacted 31 people. Paid back debts with her inheritance. Not mine, hers. I accessed the accounts still under trust authority and executed disbursements labeled restitution. Per T. Hughes addendum. The calls were all the same. Shock. Silence. Then gratitude. One man cried, said he'd thought about suing but couldn't afford it. Another woman whispered, "She destroyed my mother's retirement. I had to work 2 jobs while burying her." I sent them the money. Quietly. Legally. Clean. Meanwhile, Chelsea was spiraling. The audit went public. Her assets were under federal review. Her coaching collective was exposed as an unlicensed, unregistered financial advice ring. And still, she didn't understand what was happening until she got the email. It came from one of the restitution recipients, forwarded directly to her personal inbox by accident or fate. Subject: "Thank you for finally doing the right thing." The message: "Dear Ms. Hughes, I received the payment today. I assume it was part of your father's final wishes. I just wanted you to know, despite everything, you've made peace with a lot of people. Maybe not everyone, but enough. God bless you for that." I'm told she threw her phone at the mirror after reading it, because she realized it wasn't her. It was me, and she couldn't stop it. She showed up again, this time at Ray's office. No appointment, no filter, just fury. "You have no right, none, to touch those accounts," she screamed. "He left them to me. I'm his daughter." Ray didn't flinch. "You were his daughter," he said calmly, "until you forged your mother's signature, violated a federal clause, and used your father's trust as your personal ATM. Now you're just a name on a frozen asset list." She broke, right there in the lobby, in front of 2 paralegals and a mail carrier. Tears, begging, shouting that she had been misled, that Jeff Calder told her it was legal, that she didn't mean to hurt anyone. But Ray? He looked through her like a pane of glass. "You told Ed he was useless," he said. "Turns out, he's the only one your father actually trusted." She left in silence. I thought that might be the end of it. But then I got a package. No return address. Inside, a torn photograph. Our wedding picture, cut down the middle. My face burned out. And on the back, a single line, written in smeared ink. "You think you've won, but you don't know the whole story." She was right. There was still one piece missing. One final file her father buried so deep, even I hadn't found it yet. A hidden clause inside a trust within the trust. And the one person who held that copy was dying. Hospice is quiet in a way that feels judgmental. Like the walls are listening, and they've already decided what kind of man you are before you even speak. The nurse at the front desk looked up when I gave the name. "Mr. Leonard Tills?" I asked. She nodded. "Room 14. He's lucid for now." Tills had been her father's attorney. Not the slick, high-powered kind. This one was old school. Wireframe glasses, typewriter loyalty, the kind of man who still kept carbon copies in a fireproof safe. He hadn't taken a new client since 2009. When Chelsea's father died, Tills vanished from the public record. No obituaries. No firm closure. Just gone. Until 2 weeks ago, when Ray stumbled across a line item in an audit log. Retainer paid to LT, Trust B. I knew immediately who it was, and what Trust B meant. See, her father had 2 trusts. The one everyone knew about, the flashy one, the estate, the assets, the inheritance Chelsea bled dry. But there was a second, smaller, quieter, a shadow trust, created solely to protect one thing. The truth. I walked into his room, and there he was. Leonard Tills, 87, skin like paper, voice like gravel. But when he looked up and saw me, he smiled. "You're the son-in-law," he said. "The good one." "Some would debate that," I replied. He chuckled, coughed, waved me closer. "You're late. He told me you'd come before the end, but I figured you gave up." "I almost did." "Well, then you're just in time." He reached under his blanket, pulled out a weathered manila envelope. The seal was unbroken. The label read, "E. Marlowe, deliver upon final review." "This," he said, "is everything." I took it. Hand steady. Heart not so much. He leaned back into the pillow like his work was finally done. "It's not about revenge, you know." I looked at him. "It's about restoration," he said. "Making sure the disease doesn't spread." He closed his eyes. That was the last thing he ever said to me. Tills died the next morning, but he gave me the final puzzle piece. Back in Ray's office, I opened the envelope. Inside, a certified copy of Trust B, dated 3 months after Chelsea's father's cancer diagnosis. And what it revealed changed everything, because hidden inside was a clause tucked deep in legal phrasing buried under inheritance jargon and payout schedules. Should any beneficiary, directly or through proxy, act in willful deception, misuse of estate property, or manipulation of fiduciary assets, said beneficiary shall forfeit not only all holdings but also trigger the relocation clause of ownership regarding the Geneva file. Ray looked up from the paper. The Geneva file? I opened the second sheet. It was a transfer of ownership, to me, of a private equity vault, located in Switzerland. Value, $38.2 million. Not just money. Evidence. A full audit trail of Calder's crimes, off-books recordings, 2 shell companies Chelsea secretly registered under aliases tied to her mother's maiden name, and emails between her and a South American consultant discussing exit plans. Ray sat back in his chair like he'd seen a ghost. She tried to move the fortune offshore, and if she failed, she planned to disappear with what was left, I said quietly. Jesus Christ. No, I said. Chelsea Hughes. The clause was triggered automatically the moment the audit confirmed misuse, which meant the entire Geneva vault, its contents, cash, documents, belonged to me. I faxed one document to the agency, another to the bank, and the third? To her. Just one page. All it said was, "Congratulations. You've been officially disinherited. The Geneva file is secure. You've lost. B." That night she called. I didn't answer. Then she left a voicemail. For minutes long. Slurred. Angry. Crying halfway through. Laughing by the end. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You think money means you won? I'll be fine. There are always people like Calder. Always someone who sees my worth. You're just a janitor cleaning up a legacy you didn't build." Click. I saved the voicemail. Ray asked if I wanted to press further. Criminal charges. Jail time. I told him, not yet. Because part of me wanted her to live with the wreckage. Not escape it in a plea deal or rehab stint or reality show redemption arc. I wanted her to sit in that echo chamber of a condo she overleveraged, scrolling through comments on her canceled seminars, reading article after article about her public fall from grace. I wanted every door to close slowly, one after the other. Not a crash, a creak. And then I wanted to knock. Because in the end, there's still one person left she doesn't know about. One name her father whispered to me before he died. A beneficiary she never saw coming. The doorbell rang at 6:14 a.m. She hadn't slept. Her hair was matted. Her robe was inside out. And the wine bottle next to her was empty but still upright, like it, too, had witnessed the slow unraveling of a woman who thought she'd built an empire on silk and steel, only to find it was sand and spite. She opened the door barefoot and froze. Because standing there wasn't me. Wasn't Ray. Wasn't an officer or a reporter or another creditor come to collect what pride she hadn't already pawned. It was a girl. 17. Red hair. Nervous smile. Holding a folder. "Chelsea Hughes," the girl asked softly. "Yes." The girl hesitated, then offered the folder like it weighed more than it should have. "I was told to give you this in person. He said you'd know what it means." Chelsea took the folder slowly, eyes locked on the name tag clipped to the girl's jacket. Samantha R. Calloway, Junior Associate, Hughes Family Trust B. Her pupil shrank. She nearly dropped the folder. The girl, Samantha, smiled gently. "He said to remind you, some things don't skip generations." Chelsea opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a one-page letter, written in her father's familiar sharp cursive. "Chelsea, this is Samantha. She's your niece. Born after your brother's short, messy marriage, the one you never asked about. She didn't grow up with money. Didn't want it. But she earned every cent I left her. She is the final beneficiary of Trust B. If you're reading this, it means you failed every test I left for you. I'm sorry, but not surprised. Everything you thought you'd inherited now belongs to her. You may hate me now, maybe forever, but you'll know, deep down, I was right. Don't hurt her. She's what I wanted you to be. Dad." Beneath the letter, copies of the new deed to the family estate, power of attorney transfers, asset reallocation orders, all legally executed, all filed. Samantha stood there silently while Chelsea's world imploded for the last time. "You knew him?" Chelsea rasped. "I met him twice," the girl said. "Once when I was a kid. He brought me ice cream. Said he wanted to watch from a distance. I thought he was just some old man from church. And the second time? Last year, Samantha replied. After your mom got sick. He told me you wouldn't understand why this was happening until it was too late. He made me promise to stay kind. Chelsea laughed. A cracked, joyless sound. Kind? She repeated. Do you have any idea what you've walked into? I do, the girl said calmly. And unlike you, I don't plan to burn it all down. She handed Chelsea a second envelope. It wasn't from her father. It was from me. Just one line. Now you know what it feels like to be replaced. She didn't scream, didn't throw it, didn't tear it up. She just sat down on the front step, slowly, like her bones were betraying her now, too. Samantha turned to leave, but then paused. He loved you, she said softly, but he didn't trust you. And those aren't the same thing. Then she walked away. Chelsea never called me again. She sold what she could, moved somewhere anonymous. Last I heard, she was speaking at a retreat about healing after betrayal. The irony nearly broke my jaw from clenching. As for me, I rebuilt. Quietly. No parades. No posts. But sometimes, when I walk past that old wedding photo on the shelf, still cut down the middle, I smile. Not because I won, but because the truth outlasted her lies. And now, the legacy she tried to erase belongs to someone who'll never sell it for a beach house and an ego trip. She said I was useless. Turns out, I was the only damn thing keeping the fire from spreading. And now, she gets to live in the ashes.